Today's no different. I do want to talk about Iran because over the weekend, the United States and Israel launched joint wide-scale attacks against Iran, and Iran has responded with strikes of their own. They've retaliated on neighboring countries. This conflict has continued now in the following days. There's no clear end date in sight. But I first want to start off the conversation by defining exactly what these military actions are, because when describing Operation Epic Fury, both President Donald Trump as well as War Secretary Pete Hegseth used the term war when talking about it. But on Wednesday, House Speaker Mike Johnson said this, quote, "We're not at war right now. We're 4 days into a very specific, clear mission and operation." What do you say? Are we at war right now with Iran?
Donald Trump says war, Pete Hegseth says war, and Marco Rubio says war. They've all said that multiple times. And if they say it, it's a war. And at the same time, you have members of Congress on the Republican side, apologists for Trump, unwilling to stand up for the Constitution, unwilling to stand up for war powers belonging to the Congress pursuant to Article 1. They're saying anything that they can to try to justify being ignored, being avoided as Congress. And so to hear Mike Johnson or to hear any of the members of the House or Senate on the Republican side call it anything other than it is, which is war, really is just another example of them undermining their own power, their own influence. And it's why when you and I have spoken before, Brittany, I've referred to Mike Johnson as the deputy speaker. Donald Trump is in charge. Donald Trump's in charge of the House Republicans, of the Senate Republicans, of the Republican National Committee, of the whole operation. And he has completely turned his back on the law and the Constitution with regard to the strikes on Iran. And I think anybody that's just willing to look at it objectively, not wearing a MAGA hat, understands that's the case.
I'm really curious why there is this real contention using the word war, because I had a conversation earlier this week with Congressman Tim Burchett. I always appreciate our conversations, but he made it a point to say we are not at war with Iran. And when I asked about the definition of war, he was saying we're in a fight with the regime, with their leadership, not with the Iranian people themselves. But why is there such a disagreement on this term?
Well, Tim is my friend, and I didn't hear what Tim said, but I can just tell you that the War Powers Act is really clear from 1973, that if you have major combat operations, sustained combat operations, and you're doing it not in immediate self-defense, if there's no imminent threat to Americans at home or abroad, that is very specific and actionable, that you need Congress. You need Congress. You can't just unilaterally go it alone as the president. And that's been the law since 1973. Now, we can take exception with what other presidents may or may not have done. And since I've been in Congress in 2019, Brittany, I will tell you we've had nothing like this. You had Joe Biden that engaged in a series of very narrow and retaliatory strikes against terrorists or against others that had already been authorized pursuant to an AUMF, an authorization for use of military force. That's what's required when you want to go to war. That's what George W. Bush, if you go back to the to the post 9/11 period, that's what he got to be able to go after Al Qaeda in the wake of 9/11. And ever since, you've had Republican and Democratic administrations lean on that authorization for use of force. It doesn't apply here. I've seen some in MAGA world try to allege that it applies to Iran. It doesn't. It was very specifically focused on Al Qaeda and those involved in the 9/11 attacks. So I think you have my Republican friends trying to shoehorn the administration's illegal and unconstitutional actions into whatever framework they can devise to try to justify the inaction of Congress during this extremely important time. And look, there are real-world consequences of these actions, of the lack of planning and preparation. There are already 6 American service members who have died. There are literally billions and billions of dollars being spent, something like another $1 billion every day. And of course, at the same time, Republicans are saying we don't have money for health care for people, but evidently we've got money for a $1 billion war every single day. So there is just a disconnect here, Brittany. This is not what the president ran on. This is not what America First was supposed to be. And of course, there are so many Americans who are stuck over there in the Middle East right now who can't get out, and there was really no forethought or planning to get them out. The president came and spoke to the nation, spoke to the Congress just days before launching the strike from his golf resort in Florida. It's just the whole thing is just beyond anything I have witnessed during my time in Congress, or really beyond anything that we've seen in modern American history.
There's been a lot